Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Andrew, and this is my first attempt at doing live stream. And what we're going to talk about this morning is about gardening. As a master gardener, I have to spend a certain amount of time doing community service, teaching, or explaining things, doing research, whatever. So here I am at the garden, and I'm going to show you how to put a garden to bed for the wintertime. And it's a real simple process, but it's probably one that some of you are not all that familiar with. And I use an organic method for all of my gardening. And so I want to show you kind of what happens. And again, this is my first attempt at doing this, so it's going to be a little rough. Hope you understand, but hopefully it'll be fun and informative at the same time. Now, this is the small garden. Um, what I've worked on two gardens this summer, and this is one of them. This is the in-town garden, and then there's one out in the country. So anyway, this is what it looks like now. I've put it to bed. And it's real simple how that works. Basically, and this is how I do gardening in general, and that is that in order to do things organically without pesticides, without herbicides, things like that, we're trying to use methods that will enable us not to have to resort to those because those have negative effects on our food, on our environment, so on and so forth. So basically, anytime you do a garden, whether it's to put it to bed for the wintertime or to actually in the spring when you begin your garden, you can do the same thing. But here's what I did. And excuse all the mess in the backyard there. So let you take a look at what's here on the ground. Let's see what's going on here. Basically, oops, I may have hit a button that I shouldn't have. We'll try to get it back. Yeah, we got it back. Okay. Anyway, so basically what we've got here is if I were to uncover these leaves right here, you would see cardboard. So basically I've laid down cardboard right on top of the grass. And what the cardboard accomplishes is it prevents sunlight from getting to the grass and thus starving it of light, which it needs to grow. And what we're trying to do basically is to chop off or starve out any kind of weeds or grass in the garden because they cause problems. We have to weed them and remove them when we garden. So what I've done is I've come in here with cardboard and then I've laid the leaves on top. Now the leaves are just leaves that I got from my neighbor, who was actually a couple of neighbors, my neighbor next door here and also across the street. And a lot of people will gather up their leaves in bags, either plastic bags or in these paper bags that you get from Lowe's or wherever. And so those are real handy. And so you can go around your neighborhood and say, hey, can I have your leaves? And hopefully they'll say yes, and then you can use those. So anyway, that's the basic layout that I use for gardening these days. And I've done this. The first time I used this, I think, was back. When was that? Back in 07, maybe. And so I've been doing organic gardening for years, and I have no intentions of going back and doing things any differently because I think for the sake of the environment, for the sake of your food, you don't want pesticides and herbicides on them. They're poison. They kill the plants, but also they're not that good for you as a human because we're seeing a rise in cases of cancer and all different kinds of things where people are being affected by what's being placed on our food and whatnot. And look here, we have some kale that is still alive. Look at this. I could pick that kale right there and eat it, no problem. That's perfectly good kale, and kale is amazing. It's a plant that will actually survive a lot of cold weather, and it's one of the best plants that you can eat. It's full of iron, full of all kinds of good stuff, and so I highly recommend that one. There's several different kinds that you can plant, and they're they have to be doctored. Obviously, the taste is not the very best, but at the same time, uh, the way I look at food is medicine. A lot of people look at food simply as something to satisfy their taste buds or their hunger, and that's me as well. But I also look at food as medicine. It can bring healing to your body, um, and if you eat the right kinds of food, the right amounts of food, and that kind of thing. And I am not a vegetarian, in case you're wondering. I love a good piece of salmon. Um, I love venison when it's prepared correctly, chicken, so on and so forth. Haven't had a hamburger in a long time, but I enjoy a good hamburger from time to time. Uh, but anyway, that's beside the point. The main thing is, if you can see what's going on here, you can discover one of the basics for gardening. That is, cover up the grounds and starve the plants, the negative, undesirable plants like grass and weeds of sunlight. And once that's done, I mean, all of us have seen this happen. You've placed something on your yard, a tarp or anything, piece of wood or whatever, and then you go back a little later, a few days later, and you pull it off, and the grass has turned yellow. So basically, you're starving that grass of any kind of sunlight, which will eventually kill the grass, and if it's left there long enough. But grass and weeds are so pernicious that something has to be done to kind of knock them down in order for you to be able to have a decent garden without having to spend a lot of time weeding and pulling weeds, pulling grass. Unfortunately, this little spot here has a lot of Bermuda grass in it, and sadly, that's a very invasive type of grass, and so it's a constant battle to keep it from overtaking the garden. And so, look there. There's some other plants that are actually surviving the winter pretty well. I believe that's arugula right there. You can see how green it is. It's amazing. Of course, we've had a rather mild winter so far. If you're living in Tennessee, then you know that we've had. I mean, right now it's probably in the 70s. I'm guessing, and this is the 27th of December, and it's very unusual for us to have this kind of warmth at this time of year. So I'm hoping that turns a corner and we have some cold weather again, because that's the way it should be. So anyway, I just wanted you to see how that the basic putting the garden to bed for the wintertime is done. And there's other things I could say. There's things you can do to prepare the garden for wintertime. But this is your basic kind of thing. You want to cover it up. You want to basically, and also that protects the soil. And this, of course, is going to rot down and become a type of compost, if you will, eventually. And let's go look. I also want you to see the fig trees. Now, obviously, this my neighbor, next door neighbor here, she has a gargantuan fig tree, or fig bush, however you want to put that. It's become a tree. And this thing is so large that she has a hard time actually being able to get to the figs. So what is a fig good for if you can't actually get to it and put it on the table? So anyway, we've talked about me helping her out and cutting that fig bush back so that she can have better fruit and more accessible fruit in the future. Now here is, and sorry about all the trash, it kind of blows into this corner here. Any kind of bag or trash gets blown back in here. So anyway, this is the fig bush here at the house, and I've already gone through and taken out a lot of the stems, the canes, if you will, and cut them out. So we have sort of the basic canes that we need. Really, you only need a couple of canes, but it wouldn't hurt to have several. And so you can see where I've cut these. And then on top of that, I've done the same thing that I did over in the garden, and that was that I placed the leaves around the canes so that it'll protect the bush during the wintertime, keep it from freezing and any kind of damage. Sometimes figs will be negatively affected by the cold, and so this is a good way to kind of modify or mitigate that from happening. All right, and then here's also another little fig that was planted this year, and you can see I've placed the leaves around there as well. So, okay, I'm trying to think of other things that we can talk about while I'm out here today. I've got to go to work here in just a little bit, but I've got some time to blab about gardening, and hopefully these things are going to be helpful. I know that it took me years to get to the place where I am now and understand that I have now about organic gardening, because I didn't grow up growing things organically. My parents had gardens from the time I was just a young person, and they had me involved in the garden, which I didn't really like at first because I ended up usually doing, weeding and hoeing and things like that. And who likes to do that, And that's part of what this is all about. Is if you do this right here, you're not going to have to do as much of that, because you're not going to have the level of weeds and grass that you would had you not done this right here. And so make it easy on yourself. Work smart, not hard. Well, work smart and hard. But if you can work smart, that's obviously the way to go. All right. And I've got a few little things growing here that these are, this is a persimmon tree right here. I grew these from seeds. They come up from seeds. There's a lot of them here. And the idea is that these will eventually become trees. And I love persimmons. I grew up eating persimmons as a young person. My mom made persimmon pudding. If you've never had persimmon pudding, you should try it. It's a wonderful dish. My mom was a wonderful Southern cook, and she knew how to make all that good stuff that a lot of which I don't even eat now because it's way too fattening. Trying to keep my arteries clean. So by the grace of God, I'm going to try to do that. They'll stay clean. Anyway, and this is some stevia. This right here, stevia. You can see that that's gone. Down. The sap has gone down for the winter time, and I was able to harvest the seeds so that I could plant more stevia plants. I got that from a friend of mine in Knoxville, and stevia does quite well here in Tennessee, which is nice because I love stevia. It's a herbal alternative to sugar. It's very sweet. and I prefer it. Much prefer it to like artificial sweeteners like Sweet and Low and whatnot, Splenda, which are not. Sweet and Low's okay, Splenda not so much. Aspartame definitely not good. Equal, all that. You should definitely avoid that if you can. Uh, you can see the trellises. They've still got some of the dead vines from this last growing season. Those will eventually probably just go away from just rotting and the wind blowing them and birds. Who knows? Okay, I'm being told that my battery is getting low. I didn't realize it was that low. I would have charged it up a little better. Here's one thing that I want you to see. And again, my apologies for how bumpy this, but I'm having to hold a laptop. This is the anyway, the apple scraps and whatnot, and that's going to eventually turn into compost and can be used to place on the garden. And so we're probably going to be getting close to the end of this video. If it stops, then you know that my battery has run out. Such are the ways of modern technology. It works. It's good when it works, not so good when it doesn't. But anyway, it is a rather warm day today, and I don't know what that's going to mean for us as far as the garden next year and grass and whatnot. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how to put a garden to bed, how to grow a garden in the springtime. Just lay down your cardboard, put your leaves, put your straw. You can get straw, do the same thing, and just put that on top of the cardboard. And or you can use chips, if you want to do that. A little more expensive. I try to find ways that are as economical as possible. I do have two gardens, and the other one, this last year was the first year I grew that one out in the country, and it did quite well. Quite well. The soil down there is just absolutely fantastic. The soil here is good as well, but the soil down there just seems to be better. Don't know why. Anyway, I'm going to sign off for now. We're getting close to the 20-minute mark, and I hope I haven't bored you, but the main thing is I wanted to give you a few tips about growing things and just the basics on gardening. And I hope to come back and do some more as time goes on. This helps me with my community service hours for a Master Gardener certification, and besides, hopefully it'll help some of you folks to be better gardeners and to enjoy gardening more, because you don't have to do as much work. You don't have to spend as much time pulling weeds. I didn't really spend a lot of time pulling weeds this last summer. Not here anyway. The garden down in the country got a little ahead of me, and so I ended up pulling quite a few weeds there. But hopefully I'm going to get ahead of it this year, and it won't be as big of a problem. But that's the main thing. You gotta start early. Start now if you can. Do everything you can to cover up your garden. I don't typically plow the garden anymore. I basically just I'll dig a hole. I'll make sure it's got plenty of organic matter in it and organic fertilizer, and I'll leave it at that. I'm not growing much in the way of row crops at this point, so I don't need to do a lot of disking or plowing. Back when I was at home living with my folks, we had sizable gardens, and we got the old tractor out and would plow. But not doing much of that right at the moment. I hope to eventually do that more as time goes on. Anyway, we're coming up on the 20-minute mark, and I think that's good enough for today. Hope you guys have a blessed day, and enjoy the beauty of God's creation. That's what it's all about. The Creator placed Adam and Eve in the garden, and it was a wonderful thing. And so, gardening was man's first profession. It will probably always be his best profession. All right, you take care, and we'll see you next time.